The sun cast long shadows across the cracked sidewalks of Akron, Ohio. Inside a small apartment, a young LeBron James sat at a wobbly kitchen table, pencil in hand, staring blankly at the homework before him. The words on the page blurred together as his stomach growled, a sharp reminder of the empty fridge just a few feet away. His mother, Gloria, bustled around the room, her voice a mix of urgency and encouragement. "You've got this, baby. Just focus," she said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. She didn't mention the overdue bills piling up on the counter or her exhaustion from working 2 jobs. LeBron nodded but felt the weight of their circumstances pressing down on him. School was supposed to be his escape, but with every passing day, it felt more like a battlefield. He couldn't concentrate when hunger gnawed at him, when the fear of eviction loomed, or when classmates mocked his worn-out shoes. One day, a teacher named Mrs. Allen pulled him aside after class. Her kind eyes met his, and her voice was steady yet warm. "LeBron, you're capable of greatness," she said. "But you have to believe it yourself. Education can take you places you've never imagined. Never let your circumstances define you." Her words lingered with him, sparking something deep within. That night, as he lay on the threadbare couch he called a bed, he whispered a silent promise to himself. "If I ever make it out of here, I'll come back. I'll help kids like me." Years later, as the roar of thousands of fans in an NBA arena became his new reality, that promise never left him. It grew stronger with every game he played, every win he achieved, and every memory of the struggles he left behind. The seed was planted in those quiet, desperate moments. Little did he know, it would bloom into something far greater, a promise not just for himself, but for an entire generation of children waiting for their chance to escape. The gymnasium buzzed with quiet anticipation, the kind that happens when a community gathers, unsure of what they're about to witness but hopeful nonetheless. Families from across Akron filled the folding chairs, some in work uniforms, others clutching the hands of curious children. On the stage, a podium stood flanked by banners that read, "I Promise Foundation, for a Better Tomorrow." LeBron James stepped up to the microphone, his towering frame and confident presence commanding the room. Yet, his voice carried a warmth that immediately made everyone feel at ease. "I grew up just like many of you," he began, his words deliberate, his tone personal. "I sat in classrooms right here in Akron, wondering if I'd ever make it out. Wondering if I'd ever be more than what people expected me to be." He paused, scanning the faces in the crowd. Parents leaned forward, children watched wide-eyed. "This city shaped me, gave me my grit, my determination," he continued. "And now, it's my turn to give back. That's why today, we're launching the I Promise Foundation. This is more than a school program, it's a movement. A promise that no child will be left behind, that every child deserves a chance to dream, to learn, and to succeed." The audience erupted into applause, but for many, it was more than clapping. It was an outpouring of hope, a release of years of frustration and longing. LeBron's words reached beyond the stage, beyond the gym, into the very heart of the community. He shared details of the program, free tuition, free meals, job support for parents, and a guarantee that every student who stayed in the program would have their college tuition paid. "This isn't charity," he added firmly. "It's an investment in our future." In the front row, Malik's mother wiped away tears as her son sat clutching her hand. For the first time, she dared to imagine a different path for him, one where poverty wasn't a given and opportunity wasn't a dream. As LeBron finished his speech, he looked out into the crowd, locking eyes with as many people as he could. His voice softened but carried weight. "I promise you this," he said, his hand resting over his heart. "We're just getting started." The gym erupted in cheers, a wave of optimism sweeping through the room. In that moment, the dream didn't just belong to LeBron, it belonged to them all. The smell of stale textbooks and worn wooden desks filled the air of the small classroom, where Malik sat in the back corner, his head resting on his folded arms. The muffled chatter of his classmates surrounded him, but his mind was elsewhere, somewhere far from school, deep in the problems his mother faced keeping the lights on at home. "Malik Thompson?" His head shot up at the sound of his name. Standing at the doorway was his teacher, Ms. Parker, holding a stack of envelopes. The class quieted as she walked toward him. Her usual stern demeanor softened. "Come with me for a moment," she said, handing him an envelope sealed with a logo he didn't recognize. "I Promise Foundation." Confused and unsure, Malik followed her to the hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Ms. Parker knelt down to meet his eyes. "Malik," she began, her voice kind but steady. "You've been selected for the I Promise program. This is a huge opportunity. They see potential in you." "Me?" he asked, clutching the envelope like it might disappear. "Yes, you," she replied. "You've worked hard, even when things weren't easy. This program is going to help you, your mom, your future. It's your ticket to something better." He opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a letter outlining everything: a spot at the newly established I Promise school, free meals, free transportation, and resources for his mom to find a better job. The words felt surreal, like they were meant for someone else. When he returned home that evening, he found his mother sitting at the kitchen table, sifting through overdue bills. She barely looked up as he handed her the letter. "What's this?" she asked, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Just read it," Malik said, his voice quiet but urgent. Her eyes scanned the paper, her brow furrowing before her mouth fell open. Tears welled up as she read the details again and again, as if confirming it wasn't some cruel joke. "They chose you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They really chose you." Malik nodded, a shy smile creeping onto his face. For the first time in years, the weight on his chest seemed to lift, replaced by something foreign but welcome: hope. As the two embraced, the faint sounds of children playing outside filtered through the thin walls. Malik looked toward the window, imagining a future that suddenly felt within reach. He didn't know exactly what was ahead, but for the first time, he believed it might be something good. The brightly colored hallways of the I Promise school bustled with activity. Students, some wide-eyed with wonder, others hesitant and guarded, moved between classes. Teachers greeted them warmly, trying to create an atmosphere of safety and encouragement, but it wasn't always easy. Malik sat at his desk in a math class, his pencil hovering over a worksheet. Around him, the room buzzed with subdued chatter as the teacher, Mr. Coleman, walked between rows, checking on students. Malik's brow furrowed as he stared at a problem, frustration mounting. "Do you need help, Malik?" Mr. Coleman asked, leaning down beside him. "I can do it," Malik mumbled, though the numbers on the page blurred together. Across the room, a loud voice broke the quiet. "Man, why do we even gotta do this? This is stupid." All heads turned to Jerome, a tall boy who often found himself at odds with authority. The teacher approached calmly, but Jerome stood, grabbing his bag and storming out. Malik watched him go, his own sense of inadequacy mirrored in Jerome's outburst. Later that day, in the cafeteria, the challenges of the program were on full display. Some students sat alone, unaccustomed to being part of a supportive community. Others clung to their old habits, fighting, teasing, or retreating into themselves. Malik picked at his tray of food, keeping his head down. "Hey, new kid!" a voice called out. Malik looked up to see a group of older boys smirking. "Why you always so quiet? Too good to talk to us?" Malik's face burned with embarrassment, but he didn't respond. Before the situation could escalate, a teacher intervened, guiding the boys away. Malik sighed in relief, but the interaction left him shaken. The staff held a meeting that evening to discuss the growing pains of the program. "We're trying to change lives," Principal Harris said, her voice weary but resolute. "But we have to remember these kids come from tough circumstances. It's going to take time." LeBron joined the meeting virtually, his face serious. "We knew this wasn't going to be easy," he said. "But these kids are worth it. We don't give up on them." Meanwhile, at home, Malik sat with his mom at their small kitchen table. She helped him with his homework, even though she admitted math wasn't her strong suit. "We'll figure it out together," she said, smiling at him. Malik nodded, her encouragement filling a small part of the void left by his doubts. Slowly but surely, he began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this school wasn't just a program, it was a chance. A real one. The gymnasium echoed with the squeak of sneakers and the rhythmic bounce of basketballs as students gathered for what they thought was a regular gym class. Malik stood at the edge of the court, clutching a basketball but hesitant to join the game. He scanned the room, trying to stay invisible. Suddenly, the sound of the doors swinging open drew everyone's attention. Gasps and murmurs filled the air as LeBron James himself strode in, his familiar smile lighting up the room. "What's up, Akron?" LeBron's deep voice boomed. The students erupted in cheers, their excitement spilling out in shouts and applause. LeBron clapped his hands together. "All right, who's ready to play some ball?" he asked, grabbing a ball from the rack and spinning it effortlessly on his finger. The students scrambled to form teams, and Malik found himself reluctantly included. LeBron moved between the groups, encouraging every player, laughing, and making the entire room feel alive. When Malik hesitated to take a shot, LeBron knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You see that hoop?" LeBron asked, pointing. Malik nodded, unsure where this was going. "That hoop doesn't care where you're from, how much money your family has, or what anyone else thinks about you. All it cares about is if you believe you can make the shot." "So you believe?" Malik stared at him, the sincerity in LeBron's voice striking a chord. Slowly, he nodded. "Good," LeBron said, standing back. "Now show me." Taking a deep breath, Malik squared up and shot. The ball arched through the air, clinking against the rim before swishing through the net. The gym erupted in cheers, and Malik felt a grin spread across his face, a rare, unguarded moment of pride. After the game, LeBron gathered the students around him, sitting on the gym floor in a loose circle. He shared stories of his own struggles growing up in Akron, the missed days of school, the hunger, and the moments he almost gave up. "But here's the thing," he said, his voice steady. "Someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And now, I believe in you. Every single one of you. No matter how tough it gets, you keep going. You've got a whole team behind you now. You're not alone." Later that evening, as Malik walked home with his mother, he couldn't stop talking about the day. For the first time, he saw himself in someone successful, someone who had faced the same odds and won. "He said he believes in me," Malik said, the words almost a whisper, but filled with wonder. His mother smiled, squeezing his hand. "That makes two of us," she said. As they turned the corner to their apartment, the light from the street lamp seemed just a little brighter, and for the first time in a long while, the future didn't feel so far away. The classroom buzzed with energy as the students worked on a group project about community service. Malik sat with a small group, carefully sketching a poster for their presentation. His confidence had grown over the past few weeks, but moments of doubt still crept in. "That looks awesome, Malik," said Sarah, one of his classmates, leaning over to admire his work. Malik smiled shyly, muttering a quiet, "Thanks." Their teacher, Ms. Parker, watched from the front of the room, a faint smile on her face. These moments of collaboration and small victories reminded her of why this program existed. But not every day was easy. Down the hall, Principal Harris was meeting with the parents of another student, Jerome. His attendance had become sporadic, and his struggles at home were bleeding into his school life. Jerome sat sullenly beside his mother, arms crossed, as Harris tried to find a solution. "We want to help, but we need him here to make progress," Harris said, her tone firm yet compassionate. Jerome's mother sighed, her exhaustion palpable. "I want that too, but life's just hard right now." The meeting ended without resolution, a stark reminder of the challenges the school faced. Later that afternoon, news spread that Jerome's family had decided to leave the program, unable to overcome their circumstances despite the school's support. The news hit Malik harder than he expected. That evening, at a student parent-teacher meeting, he listened quietly as another student shared a story of triumph, a girl named Alexis, who had turned her failing grades around with the help of tutors provided by the program. Alexis's voice trembled with emotion. I used to think I couldn't do anything right, she said. But now I know I'm capable of more than I ever thought. The room erupted in applause, but Malik's thoughts lingered on Jerome. He wondered if he would have made it too, with just a little more support. After the meeting, LeBron surprised the group by appearing via video call. His face was a mix of pride and determination as he spoke. I know this isn't easy, he said. But nothing worth having ever is. Every setback we face is just another chance to come back stronger. You're not just students, you're pioneers. And we're in this together. Malik felt a surge of resolve as LeBron's words resonated. He thought of Jerome, of the struggles his family faced, and of his own journey. The setbacks were real, but so were the victories. That night, Malik sat at the kitchen table with his mom, finishing his homework. He looked up at her, determination in his eyes. I'm not giving up, Mom, he said firmly. She smiled, her pride unmistakable. I know you won't, she replied. For every step back, Malik promised himself he'd take 2 forward. The path wasn't always clear, but he was beginning to believe that it was worth walking. The Saturday morning sun cast a golden glow over the city park, where dozens of I Promise school students, parents, and staff gathered for a community service day. Malik stood in the middle of the bustling crowd, holding a pair of gloves and a trash bag. Around him, kids laughed and adults exchanged greetings, the atmosphere buzzing with camaraderie. All right, team, Principal Harris called out, her voice amplified by a megaphone. Today, we're giving back to our community. This park has seen better days, but by the time we're done, it'll be a space everyone can enjoy. Malik's group was assigned to clean up litter near the playground. As they worked, Malik noticed how the students naturally looked to him for direction. Hey, let's start over there by the swings, he said, pointing to a particularly cluttered area. The kids nodded, following his lead without hesitation. Malik felt a small flicker of pride, an unfamiliar but welcome feeling. Nearby, Ms. Parker watched Malik with quiet admiration. She approached him as he stooped to pick up a crushed soda can. You're a natural leader, Malik, she said, her tone warm. He looked up, surprised. Me? I'm just cleaning up trash. Ms. Parker smiled. Leadership isn't about titles or speeches. It's about actions, and right now, you're showing others how to step up. Keep it up. The words stayed with Malik throughout the day. As the group finished their section, he spotted a few younger kids struggling to carry a heavy trash bag. Without thinking, he jogged over to help. Here, let me take that, he said, grabbing the bag and tossing it into the nearby dumpster. The kids beamed at him, their gratitude shining through. By the time the event wrapped up, the park looked transformed. Freshly planted flowers lined the paths, the playground sparkled, and the once overflowing trash bins were empty. During a brief closing ceremony, Principal Harris called Malik to the front. I want to recognize someone who truly stepped up today, she said, gesturing for Malik to join her. His face turned red as the crowd clapped and cheered. Malik hesitated, but the encouraging smiles around him gave him the courage to walk forward. Standing beside Principal Harris, he felt a weight lift, replaced by a newfound confidence. After the event, Malik's mother pulled him into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Malik smiled, the shy boy he once was fading into memory. For the first time, he could see a version of himself he liked, a leader, a role model, someone who could inspire others. As they walked home, the sun setting behind them, Malik glanced back at the park, now full of families enjoying the fresh, clean space. It felt like a metaphor for his life. With effort and the right support, even something worn down could be renewed. The auditorium buzzed with excitement as families and friends filled the rows of seats, their voices creating a symphony of anticipation. Balloons and banners decorated the walls, with one large sign above the stage reading, Congratulations, I Promise Graduates, Class of 2025. Malik stood backstage, fidgeting with his graduation gown. His heart pounded, a mix of nerves and pride. Today wasn't just about finishing school, It was about proving to himself and everyone else that he could rise above the odds. "You ready, man?" a voice asked. Malik turned to see Sarah, his classmate and one of his closest friends in the program. He nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yeah. I think so." "Good, because you're about to knock this out of the park," she said with a grin. The ceremony began with Principal Harris stepping to the podium, her voice filled with emotion as she addressed the crowd. "Today, we celebrate more than just a milestone," she said. "We celebrate resilience, growth, and the promise of brighter futures. These students have overcome challenges most of us can't imagine, and they've done it with courage and determination." As the names of the graduates were called, cheers erupted for each one. When Malik's name was announced, the room exploded in applause. He walked across the stage, his head held high, feeling the weight of years of effort culminating in this moment. Then came the valedictorian speech. Malik's name was called again, and the applause grew even louder. He stepped up to the podium, his hands gripping the edges as he surveyed the sea of faces. "When I first started at I Promise, I didn't think I belonged," he began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I thought it was a mistake, that someone like me couldn't succeed." He paused, his gaze finding his mother in the crowd, her eyes glistening with pride. "But over time, with the support of my teachers, my friends, and my mom, I realized that I wasn't just here to pass the time, I was here to build a future. And I'm not just talking about mine. This school taught me that when you succeed, you have a responsibility to help others succeed too." The audience listened intently as Malik shared stories of the program, the struggles, the victories, and the lessons learned. "LeBron James once told us that a hoop doesn't care about your background. It only cares if you believe in yourself." That lesson stuck with me. Because today, I stand here not just as a graduate, but as someone who finally believes. He smiled, his voice growing stronger. "And to my classmates, remember this, we are the first, but we won't be the last. Let's keep this promise alive, for the next class, and the one after that." The auditorium erupted in applause as Malik stepped back, his heart full. LeBron, seated in the front row, stood and clapped, his pride visible. As the ceremony ended, Malik and his classmates tossed their caps into the air, a flurry of colors and cheers marking the start of a new chapter. Walking out of the auditorium, Malik felt a sense of peace he hadn't known before. The promise had been fulfilled, and now, it was his turn to carry it forward. Years had passed since Malik walked across the stage at the I Promise school graduation. Now, he stood in front of a different crowd, a room filled with donors, community leaders, and the next generation of I Promise students. The fundraising gala was in full swing, the room adorned with glittering lights and photographs capturing the program's journey. Malik adjusted his tie nervously, his heart racing. He'd spoken at school assemblies before, even led workshops for younger students, but tonight felt monumental. He wasn't just speaking about his experience, he was living proof of the program's success. The room quieted as he stepped onto the stage, a spotlight illuminating him. He took a deep breath, the echoes of his journey swirling in his mind. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "My name is Malik Thompson, and I am proud to say I'm an I Promise graduate." Applause erupted, but Malik raised his hands gently, signaling the crowd to let him continue. "I grew up in Akron, in a small apartment where every day felt like a battle. My mom worked harder than anyone I've ever known, but the weight of poverty is a heavy thing to carry. There were times I wanted to give up. Times I thought, this is just my life." He paused, his voice softening. But then, something changed. "I became part of the I Promise program, and for the first time, I saw a way out. Not just for me, but for my mom, for kids like me, for our community." Malik's eyes scanned the room, landing briefly on LeBron James, who watched with a proud smile. "This program didn't just give me an education, it gave me a purpose. I graduated. I went to college. And now I'm here, working as a mentor for the next generation of students, helping them see what's possible, just like others helped me." The room was silent, every eye on Malik. He leaned forward slightly, his voice strong and clear. "I'm here because someone believed in me. Someone who made a promise to break the cycle of poverty for kids in Akron. That promise wasn't just words, it was action. And now, it's my turn to give back. To keep that promise alive." He gestured toward a group of current I Promise students seated near the front. "These kids, right here, are our future. And I'm asking all of you to join us in making sure they have every opportunity to succeed." The crowd erupted in applause, many standing in a show of support. Malik stepped off the stage, his heart pounding but full. As the night continued, donors approached him, eager to share their admiration. LeBron found him in the crowd, pulling him into a quick hug. "You killed it up there," LeBron said, his voice filled with pride. "You're the reason this works, Malik. You're the proof." Malik smiled, humbled by the words. "You started it," he said. "I'm just doing my part to keep it going." Later, as the event wound down, Malik watched the room fill with hope and determination. The cycle wasn't just breaking, it was being replaced with something stronger. The promise was alive, not just in him but in every life it touched. And that was only the beginning. The I Promise school buzzed with life, its hallways filled with laughter and the shuffling of feet. Bright murals covered the walls, each depicting a chapter of the school's journey. A plaque near the entrance bore the words, "Every great dream begins with a promise." Below it was an engraving of LeBron James' signature, a tribute to the program's founder. Malik stood in the lobby, now a young man in his late 20s, dressed in a crisp shirt and tie. Beside him was Principal Harris, still radiating the same warmth and determination she had during his time as a student. "It's good to have you back, Malik," she said with a smile. "Feels good to be back," he replied, glancing around at the place that had shaped his life. The day's agenda was special. Malik was returning as a guest speaker to inspire the next generation of students. As he walked into the auditorium, memories flooded back, his own graduation day, the nerves, the pride, and the overwhelming sense of hope. The room was packed with students, teachers, and parents. Malik stepped onto the stage, his presence commanding but approachable. The students, many of whom had heard of him as a success story, watched with wide eyes. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice carrying warmth and confidence. "It feels amazing to be here, standing where I once sat, dreaming about a future I wasn't sure I'd ever have." He spoke about his journey, weaving in stories of challenges and triumphs, but always returning to the theme of perseverance. "This school didn't just teach me math and science," he said. "It taught me how to believe in myself, even when the odds were against me." Malik ended his speech with a call to action, much like LeBron had years ago. "Your dreams matter," he told the students. "And no matter where you come from, you have the power to achieve them. But remember, it's not just about reaching your goals, it's about lifting others up along the way. That's the promise we make to each other." The room erupted in applause, the students cheering loudly as Malik stepped down from the stage. Among them was a young boy who approached him shyly, clutching a notebook. "Mr. Malik," the boy said hesitantly, "do you think I could do what you did someday?" Malik crouched down to the boy's level, smiling. "I don't think you can," he said, pausing for effect. "I know you can." The boy's face lit up, and Malik ruffled his hair before standing. As he turned, he saw LeBron standing in the back of the room, watching with a proud smile. Later, Malik and LeBron walked through the school together, talking about its future. "This place has grown so much," Malik said, marveling at the additions and improvements. LeBron nodded. "It's not just a school anymore. It's a movement. And you're a big part of that, Malik." As they stood near the plaque at the entrance, the two men shared a quiet moment, the weight of their shared journey settling over them. "You kept the promise," LeBron said, clapping Malik on the back. "And so will they," Malik replied, gesturing to the students passing by. The school bell rang, signaling the start of another class, another chance, another promise. Malik stepped outside into the sunshine, watching the students file into the building. The future looked bright, not just for them, but for the community they would one day transform.